COVID-19, the biggest event in the current history of mankind. COVID-19, the eye-opener, the liberty taker, the biggest disappointment I have ever had. An event so huge that the entire world participated in it. Whether it was necessary or not doesn't matter. It's the fact that everyone got on board and tried to do something about it. Tried to do something about this virus that is going to wipe out the human species. Stop working out at the gyms. Stop going to church with your families. Stop having people over to your house and participating in family events. But wait a minute. There is a way. There is a way that you can continue to do these things, and that is to social distance. And the magical number pulled out of thin air in the United States is what? 6 feet. Also, if you're unable to keep that social distance, then don a mask on your face. That mask will not prevent the virus from penetrating your body and infecting you. But we want you to wear it anyway. In fact, it's been a year. We don't want you to wear one mask anymore. We want you to wear multiple masks. Multiple masks. Multiple masks that don't do anything to prevent you from getting sick. And in fact, they will actually make you sick. So, that's what I'm saying. So, if it was a year ago, why didn't they tell us to wear more than one mask? I mean, look how many people died when they told us to wear one mask. And you're telling us we should be wearing more than one mask now? And the sad truth is, masks don't do anything. Close the restaurants. Do not let the restaurants be open, for it is killing people. Wait, you can reopen the restaurants now to 25%. Wait a minute. Wait, COVID's still here. Close the restaurants. They cannot be open unless they have tents, unless they have walls and tables and chairs that are outside in the open air, where the air is colder, where it's December and January, when it's the dead of winter. Sit in those tents while your immune system has to struggle harder to keep warm, which taxes the immune system, which makes it easier for COVID to penetrate and to infect. But if it's outside in a tent, it's okay. But if it's inside, you need to make sure that you have cold air blowing through the restaurant. Because now it's okay to go ahead and have them in the building itself. But you have to have the central heating and air turned off, because it will transfer the COVID through the system and into the air. But it won't transfer through air that is moved by a fan. The COVID will just magically not be there. And if they touch the inside of a tent and touch the tables and the chairs, it's not as bad as touching the chairs and the tables inside of a restaurant. So they're literally just making this up. I mean, it's like the restaurant owners are like playing the I'm a little teapot, right? The governor says, no, we got to close the restaurants. No, it's okay if they open at 25%. Oh, no, they need to reclose the restaurants. Okay, I guess it's okay they can be in tents. Okay, I guess it's okay that they can be in there without the central heating and air on. I mean, literally, if they know anything about biology and how the human body works, okay, you can learn this. At least you did back in the day when I was a kid. I don't know if they teach it anymore. But there's a lot of stuff that they're doing that is actually making it worse. Okay? You don't want to stress your body in temperatures that are going to make your body work harder to stay warm. Okay? So what that does is it actually weakens your immune system. So, and then this idea that the air, if it's free flowing through the tent, it's not going to be as bad as if it's air moving through a restaurant. Okay? So, yeah, it's something else, really. I mean, I brought that up about them just shutting off their heating and air like a good month and a half before they actually started letting restaurants do that. I made the funny comment that, they're putting up tents. Why don't they just shut off the heating and air and have them sit in the restaurant where there's still tables and chairs? Why go through the hassle of having your tent blow away in the wind or having the snow collapse it because you had it outside and people were sitting in that tent? And you guys have got this blower that's blowing, hot air into the tent to try to keep the patrons warm while they eat their food, right? And that's just blowing stuff around, right? So the guy sneezes or coughs. Okay, he doesn't do it in his mask because he doesn't want to make it spread inside of his mask and has to feel the wetness. So he lifts his mask and he does it outside. And then you got that blower that's blowing the air around, and now it's blowing it right to your face. Okay? You're sitting in your car at an intersection, and all of a sudden you can smell cigarette smoke. You look across from you and you see a guy sitting in his car with the window barely cracked open. And yet you can still smell the cigarette smoke. Okay? This idea that we can control the virus by saying you're 6 feet away and by saying that you can't use central heating and air and that you need to be checking for carbon monoxide buildup so you don't have an explosion in the restaurants. I mean, how in the world did we ever survive as a species? Okay? Seriously. I mean, we have gone way overboard on trying to prevent a virus that we seem to know nothing about. Why aren't the NFL players wearing masks? Why do they get to spit on the play field and clear their mouths of spitum and spit it all over the place? You can see it when you watch television that when they play, they're spit and chew or whatever they've got going on in their mouth, maybe a loogie or something. They're not wearing masks. Oh, but they're being checked all the time with these tests that only work maybe 50% of the time. It's not safe for them to run around with masks on their face. But if it's you, as a citizen, who's not getting paid millions of dollars, you have to wear a mask because you go to Costco, right? But, special citizens that have special rights and special privileges don't have to wear masks. COVID-19 opened our eyes to the fallacy of religion, the fact that you can't pray it away, that it will kill you regardless. And too bad the secular humanists in this world know that too, and that's why they went ahead and shut down churches. Even though church and religion is protected by the ancient document, which isn't adhered to and hasn't been adhered to for probably 100 years or more. So it's always funny when someone always brings up the ancient document in defense of their liberties and their rights. But anywho, so COVID-19 exposed the political parties, showed that it didn't matter if you were a Republican or a Democrat, that deficit spending, literally producing money out of thin air, is okay to do. It's okay to just pull it out of thin air, right? Because, we have to do that because we have to shut you guys down in order to save lives. Yes, we have to shut you down in order to save lives. But we're afraid that there would be a lot of rioting and suicides if we don't give you guys free money. So we're going to go ahead and pull this money out of thin air, which is completely immoral. But hey, it's a moral society, so it's okay if we do that, because people don't have morals anymore. They make it up as they go, just like COVID-19. We pick and choose what rules and scriptures that we want to follow, and we rationalize and change what we think works best for us. So when the people do it amongst themselves, going to churches and big business, and you got to expect the government to do that also. Yeah, I mean, the government makes it up as they go. I mean, remember before COVID-19? Remember the health department? Remember how the health department would go into these restaurants and be like, I noticed that you have food that's holding. Do you have any timers on that food? How long has that food been sitting there? I notice you don't have any way of indicating whether or not that food is expired and whether it's safe for someone to consume it or not. And if they didn't have any indicators, they would fail that part of their test. And then it would be, put in the newspaper or on the internet saying that that particular restaurant failed their health inspection because they didn't have proper holding times on their foods. Well, now with COVID-19, it's okay to have food that doesn't have holding times on it. It's okay to have food that's piled up, waiting for customers to come and get the food that they had ordered previously, either on their website or via some third-party app. And the food just sits there with no timers at all, and no health department to come in to look and see how long that food's been sitting there before it's been given to that customer who might actually happen to have a compromised immune system. Now, is that actually something that needs to have happened in the past? Did we need to have the health department going into these restaurants and giving them bad reviews because they didn't have proper holding times? Because right now, doesn't matter, right? I haven't heard a word about holding times on food that is done sitting in plastic bags and containers waiting for someone to come and get it during the time that, wild bacteria could be growing on that food, making it unsafe to consume. And then how about, the use of plastic? We were supposed to be using our own bags when you go to the grocery store. We weren't supposed to be using plastic bags because they're going to end up in the ocean, and they end up killing the birds and the fish, and which is actually happening. I'm not saying that that's not happening. In fact, that's why I continue to use the bags that I bought, my own bags that I use reusably at the reusable bags that I use at the grocery store, even though they tell us no longer to use those because it might spread the COVID virus if it came from your house and it might kill somebody. So I went ahead and continued to use those bags because they insisted that I use those instead of plastic bags. And so therefore, I'm still using them. But even though there's COVID-19. But, it's funny how all of a sudden things that we thought were so important before, all of a sudden it just, poof, gone. That's no longer important. We don't care. We got to do everything to stop this cold virus from killing people, right? And the cold virus has been around forever, okay? There's always been colds. There's always been flus. People have always died. We know better than you. As a group, as a world, we have come together. We are in this together, this Borg mentality, that you are either with us or you're against us. So if you do not wear your mask at Costco, you are a murderer. We will attack you. We will throw you out. We don't care if you've been a patron of our store for the last 15, 20 years. We don't care because you are a killer and you want to kill people. That's why you don't wear a mask. It has nothing to do with whether or not you think you're right and we're wrong. It's the fact that that's what the word is. The scripture says that you will wear a mask or you will be destroyed. COVID-19 has exposed the lies and the events that we've partaken in the United States over my entire life. The fact that when I would participate in 4th of July and I would see the fireworks, and I would actually think of the wars that we had fought in the past, where people sacrifice their lives so people can have liberty. Okay? That's what I used to think about when I would see the fireworks shows. Okay? Sometimes a little tear would come to my eye. But now, instead of sacrificing lives for liberty, we take liberty to save lives. So we're actually going backwards. We have forgotten what sacrifice is. We have forgotten and do not understand what the quality of life is. We feel that people who make bad life choices should be able to take life or liberty and possibly life from other people because their life matters more than somebody else. Even though this person has made bad choices in the past and has to take special medications to survive, or maybe it's a person who happened to be born with a certain ailment, that is very unfortunate. But at what cost? At what cost do we take away liberties to protect lives, especially lives that do not protect liberty? So that is the quandrum, that is the paradox that we find ourselves in. And someone who's a protector of liberty and believes that life is not as valuable as freedom, I find that COVID-19 has completely awakened me to the point that I realize that there aren't very many people like me. There are not a lot of people in this world that would rather have liberty than life. Give me liberty or give me death. I mean, those statements came from those who had been oppressed to the point where they would rather die fighting for something they believe in than to stay alive in a lie. And that's exactly what we have going on right here today in this world, is we have a lot of people that want to take liberty to protect life. And unfortunately for us that believe that liberty is more important than life, we're living in a virtual living hell. COVID-19 has been compared to the Spanish flu. COVID-19 is nowhere near as bad as the Spanish flu. Okay, you just read your history. Read your books. Okay, do you see piles of bodies in the streets? Do you see people dying within 12 hours from exposure? The fact that we're willing to say that this is comparable to the Spanish flu shows how ignorant we are, shows how selfish we are, that we think that we're dealing with something that's really that bad, comparing it to something that was truly bad, and thinking that we're doing the right thing to prevent it from spreading. Okay? COVID-19 is no different than any other virus. Okay? It is a stronger virus. It can kill the weak easier than before. And, that is the way it is with life. Okay? The world has a way of cleansing itself when it becomes to the point of where it needs a good cleansing. Okay? We have got so many people on this planet right now that it doesn't surprise me at all that there's going to be a correction. Okay? And to correct it, you don't take liberties from other people. So people who are basically pretty much already living with extra days beyond what they probably should be living, that it's now our responsibility to keep them alive at any cost. That is wrong. That is a complete and utter mistake. Okay? That is something you don't do. That is something that does not protect liberty. And those are very, very selfish people. It's extremely selfish to think that our military and the citizens of this country who started out back in the day worked so hard for what we have today that we're willing to just give it up, give it away. Because, once liberty has been taken, you can't not get it back unless there is blood. America is so reminiscent of China that we actually watch China as an example for what we should do in a situation like this COVID. Okay? That's a country that has been communist for I don't even know how long, centuries. They do not believe in liberties and freedoms. And yet we're so willing to sit there and watch them build that hospital in 2 weeks or whatever it was, and watch them lock everything down. And then we sit here and we go, oh, that's what we need to do too, even though our death rate is so low. You know, it's like, wow, we're just going to shut everybody down. You can't have a business because we think that, you know, you're going to spread the disease or the virus because you're not wearing a mask when you're eating your pancakes at IHOP. Okay? It's absolutely ludicrous. Okay? It's ignorant, and it just blows my mind every time I think about it. You know, and if you want to look at the amount of people that have died to COVID, and why is the percentage high for the United States? Well, I wonder why. Okay? We have got so many people that are on legalized drugs. Okay? We have so many drug addicts in this country. I mean, it is astronomical. I don't even know what the number is. It's probably 1 in 3 people are on some kind of drug. Okay, whether it be legalized drugs or illegal drugs, either way, it's a drug, which is probably an opiate or whatever, and it's prescribed to them from a legalized drug dealer. Okay, so we've got these people who are basically living a lot longer than they should because they're taking these drugs, which are, I mean, you've seen the commercials for these drugs. Okay, if you take this drug, you might have this side effect, and there's like 50 side effects. Okay? And this country is like one in few countries that actually advertise for drugs. I mean, we advertise. It's like you got your legalized drug dealer right there on your TV screen every freaking night. And for some reason, oh, it's okay because it's a prescription. No, it's not okay. Okay? We're out there getting boob jobs. We're out there freaking doing facelifts. We're out there freaking pumping our lips full of stuff to make our lips look more sexual. I mean, we are pathetic. I mean, we've got people that are living way beyond what they probably should be living already. Okay? And yet that's why we're like, oh my God, why is so many people dying in the United States compared to the other countries? That's because we've got so many people cheating death. So many people that sit in their churches on Sunday and pay it lip service, okay? Do they even understand the words that they're learning when they sit in those churches? I mean, I'm telling you, I have sat in a lot of church in my lifetime, okay? A lot of church. More church than I ever should have ever sat through, okay? And what do they do? What do they do when they sit there, okay? I mean, seriously. You know, I'm the type of person where you don't need to tell me 1,000 freaking times about something, okay? I'm going to make a choice. I'm either going to do it or I'm not, okay? You don't need to sit there and it's brainwash me to try to get me to do something, all right? So when those people sit in those churches, what are they doing? Are they on their phones? Are they playing Pac-Man? I mean, seriously, it's like, look, you guys go to church and then you come home and then you do not even remotely live what Jesus is trying to teach you. I mean, it is crazy. I mean, it is absolutely crazy. You know, and it's not just Christianity. What I'm trying to say is that it's just like holidays, okay? The 4th of July. I mean, what do people think about when they're participating in 4th of July? Are they thinking about the fireworks? I mean, do they even, like during Thanksgiving, do they even think about how the country came to be and the freedom that we have had as a group of people over the last couple hundred years and how much prosperity it has created for the world? And now it's like this prosperity is hated because the Borg mentality of that time had slaves. Okay? That's unfortunate. But you know what? Guess what? Just about every civilization known to man has had slaves. Okay? We have slaves today. They're a little different than they used to be. It's a kinder, more gentler slavery. But we've been participating in that since what? The early 70s? When the green card people would come over and they would pick our fruit for us? Yeah, and then we'd ship them all back down there because no one else wanted to pick the fruit. Right? So don't give me this thing that we're all better now. You know, we don't have slavery and we're such better people. No, look, it's the Borg mentality. Okay, at the time they had African American slaves. And now, like I said, we use a kinder, more gentler slavery. You know, we have a lot of illegals that come here that do a lot of work that Americans don't want to do. Remember that statement from that great Republican president, George Bush? Remember that? When he said that, he goes, yeah, well, who's going to pick the lettuce? And so it was okay that we go ahead and have pseudo people come here and do work because the citizens don't want to do it. Well, how does that make it any better? I mean, that's still heinous, okay? And it's just like these companies, you know, they have these temporary workers that come in, okay? So basically, they're not full employees and they do the grunt work, right? Because we need more labor. And so it's okay to have temporary work services because, you know, they're not full employees, right? But they're still protected by certain laws and things. But the thing is it right? You know, it's like this idea that this country was built on slavery when all the other countries in this world, you think the pyramids were built by employees? Do you really think so? Right. Yeah. Yeah, well, have you ever read the Bible? Yeah. So the Bible does have some truths to it, right? It's not all just make believe. There are actually some truths to it. And unfortunately, they had a lot of slaves back in those days. Okay? So a lot of these civilizations that we see around us today are built on the backs of slaves. Okay? Or temps. Or indentured servants, or green card holders, whatever you want to call them. Okay? So this idea that the idea of the founding fathers wanting to start a country with freedom and liberty is something that is completely hogwash because they had slavery. Well, guess who abolished the slavery? Who got rid of it? Who tried to get rid of it? Right? I mean, slavery is still out there. It's still going on. But for some reason, because of the fact that it's tied to the founding fathers, now all of a sudden everything is worthless. Nothing matters because they had slaves. You know, and that's the whole point of this channel that I created, is that I'm trying to teach people about the Borg mentality, the mindset, the idea of a group of people in a civilization when one group of people thinks something's okay while another group thinks that it's not okay. And as generations go by and things change, the Borg mentality changes. So in one era, it was acceptable for something, and then later on, it's not acceptable. Okay, and so the problem is I'm finding myself stuck in a different Borg mentality era than what is happening right now. I'm seeing the mentality change right before my eyes. And usually this is something that takes a very long time to happen. Usually it takes, you know, centuries for this to happen. But because of the advent of, you know, of the internet and the communication, these changes are now happening at such a fast pace that, you know, whole cultures, like for instance, the American culture is currently being destroyed. I am living in a country that is destroying its own culture because the Borg mentality is changing at such a fast rate that it is literally destroying who we are as a country. You know, and nothing shows it better than COVID-19. I mean, for centuries, you know, there's been communism. We've had horrible dictators in the past that have done horrible things to the people. And back in those days, you didn't have the internet. You didn't have the communication that we have today. And there's so much slaughter that went on, and so many liberties that were trampled, and people were killed, and their lives were a living hell. They're so absolutely miserable that I cannot believe that it only took, maybe a few years since the World War II vets have all died off, so that we no longer have the people that were around when Stalin and Hitler and, you know, these atrocious dictators, and even China. and how China treats their people. I mean, back in the 80s, you had Tank Man. Do you remember Tank Man? Huh? Do you remember does anyone remember Tiananmen Square? What happened there? Has anyone seen what's going on in Hong Kong? Okay? I mean, that has never changed. There will always be those that will want to take liberty and leave you with nothing and let you starve to death. Okay? You have to be vigilant. You have to always be protecting liberty. In my little 50 years of being alive on this planet and living in this country, I have not seen us ever go on the way of liberty. We have been taking away liberty every year of the 50 years that I've been alive. Okay? We are going the wrong direction. And the COVID-19 has now just made it perfectly obvious that even the people who I thought were defenders of liberty, and the people who I would associate with and have conversations with at work and at churches and and around and about, I come to find out that these people are just lip service. Okay? They don't actually believe it. They just say it when they're around because that's what you say in this particular Borg mentality existence that we have. Because it's the internet. You just put stuff on Facebook that's, oh, look at this. Oh, I'm having beer again with my friends. Oh, look at me drink. I'm so happy. And yet, in the background, the world's, your culture's being completely destroyed. Right? Oh, you need to quit thinking about it so much. It's like, well, how do you not think about it so much when it's literally on your face 24/7? Okay? So I'm just saying that this generation does not know how imperative it is that we protect liberty. Okay? We have to protect liberty because in this situation that we have going on right now, with the Borg mentality and with the internet and with the way communication is spread so quickly, what will happen when we don't have a division of power anymore? What happens when you don't have a China? What happens when you don't have an America? What happens when you don't have a Russia? What happens when you don't have a balance? What happens? You have one world government, one world order, one Borg mentality. Okay? Once that happens, we are doomed as a species. Okay? In the eras past, there was always another country that would come in and destroy the country that was failing, right? And then that country would either be wiped out or they would actually have to be, assimilated. Okay? Well, this time it's a lot different because everything is centralized. So what happens when you have just one power? What happens? What does power do? Power corrupts. And what is it? And how does it corrupt? It corrupts absolutely. So this idea that we have all of this history of mankind and we're going to throw it all out the window because we think that these miserable lives are more valuable than some guy who spent his entire life working in a small business. And everything that he had, his blood, his sweat, his belief in freedom and liberty, has all been poured into that job that he does. And now it is gone because somebody who's 80 years old, who probably doesn't even want to be alive anymore, but they're stuck in some retirement home somewhere, and they're not allowed to leave, and they're not allowed to be with their families because the Borg mentality says, no, your life is more important than your ability to be free. That is, I'm telling you, man, this world is about ready to enter into an era that will be the darkest that it has ever seen.